Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is job site code of honor. For all of our flips, we always post a job site code of honor, which clearly states what we expect of our contractors. Some of the items on this code of honor are: every trade is responsible for cleaning up after themselves every day, no smoking in the house or on the premises, no loud music playing, last one to leave the job site is responsible for securing the site completely, each trade is responsible for all their own materials and tools, plus a few more. By posting these rules, we have found that contractors are quick to rat each other out, so the blame doesn't fall on them if there's a McDonald's wrapper or cigarette butts on the back porch. If you have contractors that speak a different language, it's important to have a separate one translated and posted for them as well. So next time you start a project, be sure to post a job site code of honor to help reduce some of those unnecessary headaches. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us David Richter. David is an active real estate investor with experience in wholesaling, the BRRRR strategy, owner financing, rentals, lease options, and any other exit strategy you can think of. While growing and building a real estate business from 5 to over 25 deals a month, he realized that as much money was coming in, it was all going right out the door. With the unique opportunity of being in every seat as a real estate investor, he found a calling in the company's finance seat to help businesses see where their money really went. To help even more people, he wrote Profit First for Real Estate Investing, a derivative of the original Profit First by Mike Michalowicz that is tailored specifically to real estate investors. His goal is to completely transform the real estate investing industry by helping real estate investors make and keep more money in their businesses. As the founder and owner of Simple CFO Solutions, he wants to bring investors true financial clarity and freedom and help every investor stop living deal to deal. David's badassery has been featured on Bigger Pockets, Real Estate Disruptors, and many other podcast shows and stages. So clearly, the next progression for him is to be on the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast with yours truly. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the show David Richter.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. This is amazing. Thanks for having me, Jen.
I am such a super fan, David. I'm just letting you know I'm a little starstruck this morning. I purposely did not drink any alcohol, so I didn't, say anything stupid. But I got to just say right off the bat, I have interviewed other authors, and they write a great book, but you meet them in person, they're like, bwah, bwah. You are just stellar. I have seen you speak on stage, and I'm thrilled to have you here. So why don't you give us a little background before we get started?
Sure. So I was born at an early age. Just kidding. So I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in college. That's what started it all. Like a lot of people in the real estate world, I had a good friend who gave me that book, and it was game over from there. I bought a house almost immediately right after that because I don't waste time and take action, and bought a house flipped it, rented it for a few months, then lived in it. It was my first house when I got married. Then actually 2 years later, moved out of that house and then lease optioned it and then got the payout at the end because it was really nice because there was no capital gains because I had lived there for 2 out of the last 5 years, and then it was off to the races. That's when I started working with a real estate investing company, and that's when we started growing it from 5 deals to 25 deals. I started building my own rental portfolio. So that's kind of just a high level overview of how I got into real estate and the large picture background there, because I went to college to be a teacher, but then from there, I mean, the first 5 years in the real estate investing world just showed me a ton about the small business world and real estate investing. So that's a little bit about my background.
I did not know you went for education. I was a middle school music teacher for 16 years till I woke up a day and realized I hated children. So
yeah. Awesome.
That is fantastic. See, I didn't think I could like you anymore. All right. So I want to first find out, how is your book different from Mike Michalowicz's First Profit? How's it different for real estate investors?
So he wrote Profit First, and that's really across the board for like any business because the principles are the same. The core fundamental principles that are taught in that book, because the key principle there is that a lot of people think that the formula for business is sales minus expenses equals profit, meaning they think, profit has to come at the end of the day, the year, when they sell their business. It's always something they're chasing. But the Profit First formula, and truly the wealth formula, how wealthy people think, is sales minus profit equals expenses, meaning I make sales, and since I'm a business owner, I can take my profit first and then everything else gets paid, and then I grow the business and then I do the things after that. So it's that fundamental principle that we both put in the book, but then I tailor mine specifically for the real estate investing world, because I get asked a lot, like, how'd you get into the finance world? And like, are you an accountant and a CPA? And I tell people, no, I did bookkeeping and the like CFO role at that first real estate investing company for like the last year. And that's where I got a lot of my skills, because I was just, whenever I want to learn something, I really dive into it. So I just dove into it myself. And then I had a CPA that I was sitting with and learning all that. That's where I really realized that the numbers tell the story. And that's where, once I started this business, Simple CFO, that's where, in helping real estate investors and other people, I realized that the Profit First methodology and the principles and the message and the story is really geared towards the entrepreneur. It's not a finance book that's for your typical, okay, this is just going to be super dry, boring, no one's going to want to read it. This is something that an entrepreneur could take and implement them in their business and see results and know how to manage the cash flow. So that's what resonated with me when I read it first. Then I went to Mike Michalowicz about a year into it and said, hey, your book is great. I would like to write a specific book for the real estate investing world, because we're not a brick and mortar business. We're not a restaurant. We're not even a service-based business. We have assets and we have the liabilities. We've got loans. We've got private lenders. We've got hard money. We've got, we've got the money flowing everywhere. So I wanted to create a book because my background at that point was about 10 years, about 8 to 10 years in real estate at that point when I went to him. And that's where I had done a bunch of deals already and knew that, hey, we need a book specifically for the real estate world. So how mine differs really is that I keep the fundamentals, but then there's some nuances to real estate. Like I have us open up an extra bank account because a part of the Profit First system is giving every dollar a name, just like the envelope system and the envelope method. And I give an extra bank account for OPM, other people's money. And we'll talk about the other fundamental accounts. I think that's going to be something we talk about here. But you open up a bank account separate from all your other ones. If you're getting private money or hard money or anyone that wires money to you for a project, if that's a draw or whatever it might be that you're getting for a project, it goes to that account. So that way you don't mingle one big bank account and think you have more money than you really do and start spending it willy-nilly. And then you get into a Ponzi scheme because it's like, hey, I'm using the project's money for someone, for running my business instead of for the projects. So that's one big difference. Another is I separate out the targets of where you should be as a business, because once you open these bank accounts, there's different percentages to put your money in different places. And I separated out between the end result being to sell the property, or the end result being to hold the property, and what those percentages should be, because those are two very different exit strategies, either selling it, and there's a bunch of ways to sell it, but if the end goal is to have money just come in, an influx of cash, versus holding the property and getting cash flow. So I separate those out in the book and give different, bank accounts, and I give different targets for those as well too. So those are a couple big ways. I dedicate a whole chapter in my book to reserves and how they help grow a company, because investors hate lazy money, and they think that, hey, if I could just put all my money out and not have to pay interest, that's better than, losing some of the profit, where it's like, yeah, but then you're right in the edge, of like being bankrupt all the time, and you're wondering, where's all my money? Even though I'm doing a bunch of deals, where's the money? So that's where I really dive into the mindset of a real estate investor, because that's who I am in my background. So it just tells a lot of the stories from the real estate investing world, and really dives into the specifics of how to apply Profit First for real estate investing to the real estate investing world.
Well, as I was reading your book, I literally would have to look around me and be like, oh my God, is he talking directly to me? I'm like, this is crazy. And I do want to get into the bank accounts and the 6 that we should open, but
yeah,
you shared a story is towards the beginning of the book of one of your clients who ended up, this is what I was like, oh my God, I love this guy. He made more money after he went through your program by doing less projects a year, and was so much more successful. So how do I get there, David? I mean, that's just one thing where I was like, oh, that I need him. I need him in my life.
So that guy, Joey English, because he's over a lot of the stuff that we say, and he loves telling the stories now because he loves what's happened on the other side. But in 2019, came to me and said, I hate fixing and flipping, which was really bad because that was his main source of income. So it was like, I hate what I'm doing. But he loved real estate. I don't know if you've ever been there. You love real estate, but you hate what you're doing in it. But that's where he came to me, and so I said, tell me what's going on then. How did you get to this point? And he said, the first thing he said was, I walked into my CPA's office at the end of this year, and she told me if I looked at your books, I would never go into real estate. So that was a slap across the face. Then she said, the gut punch was, she said, you lost $70,000 this year. And he felt like, winded at that point, like she had just sucker punched him. So then he walks underneath the door out of her office, and then, he goes back to his wife, and then he tells me the rest of the story. He told me, hey, that year we had tried doing 2 to 3 deals a month. We had never done that many before, but I'd gone to events, and I just wanted to scale and grow, like every business owner. And so my wife started working in the business. I started working more hours. I started doing all the, appointments, working 80 hours a week. My wife was working a ton. She actually started having seizures. It was a crazy year, 2019. So then going to the end of the year and having the CPA said, basically, it would have been better if you worked at McDonald's or wouldn't have started the business at all because you lost all this money. So he told me I did more deals that year than I've ever done and lost more money than I've ever lost. That's where, with a lot of the people then, the first thing we do, and the first thing we did with Joey, one of the very first things is give them that clarity on what they need from their business. What do I really need? Where do I fit into this equation, and not just what do I think I should do? So that's where we take a lot of people, and that's the first thing we try and focus on is, their need and want number. And making sure, what do you need from your business? What do you want from it? And when I go out and speak now, I tell people, find what you need to keep. What do you need to keep from your business? Because most investors and just entrepreneurs in general don't know 3 simple numbers from their business. What am I making? What am I spending? And am I keeping any of it? And the keep number is what actually keeps the entrepreneur motivated and keeps them in the game and keeps them doing what they want to do and getting the rewards and the financial freedom and financial peace in their business. So that's where with Joey, we said, okay, how much do you need to keep from your business? And how much do you need? So he found that number. We have a little process there that we take people through, and that Jen went through when I was out there and spoke. And we say, okay, what do you need to keep? So he did that. He did that process. He found what he needed to keep for him and his family on a monthly basis. And then he said, I also figured out how many deals that means to me. And I said, okay, tell me how many deals. And he said, yeah, instead of 2 to 3 a month, I only need to do 5 a year. So almost 1.25 a quarter. Like he only had to do about a deal a quarter instead of 2 to 3 a month. And so he said, why was I doing this before? And I said, because this is not out there. This is not the message that's being touted, especially in America. It's not just the investing world. It's just the American culture of more, go, 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 hustle, 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 grind, grind, grind. And it's like, I want you to be a hard worker, but not sacrificing yourself on that altar and your family and the things that really matter to you and what's going to matter to you 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. So that's where he said, okay, I only have to do 5 deals a year. And that's where the next year he did 5 deals and he netted more money than he's ever netted before. Wow. It was multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars netted because he had rentals, but he did flips, and his flips were averaging about 50 to 75 grand a pop because he was able to slow down and say, what is the best ones that I could take down, and then really working on them and to sell them at the top dollar. Like he was able to focus more on what he was really good at. So that's where that came into play. And then at the end of that year, he had the same call with his CPA in the end of 2020, and she said, what in the world happened? Because now you owe money in taxes. Even with your rental portfolio, you made so much money this year, you actually owe taxes. And he said, okay, how much do I owe? He opens up his bank account. He had the money there, sent it off, boom, done. And she's like, this time it was her falling on the floor. The CPA, like, what in the world? And he said, I now know what I make, spend, and keep, and I know how to manage the money, because we tell people that it matters more how you manage the money than how much is coming in. Because you could be making 1.1 million a year, but spending 1.5, or you could make 200,000 this year and keep 100,000. Who's wealthier in that point? So that's what we're really trying to get across to people. It's not just because we're going to talk about the bank accounts and all the practical steps. What we're trying to do though, is give entrepreneurs and investors the freedom in their own mind to say, I don't need to do what someone else is telling me. I need to do what I need to do, which I don't know, Jen, if you want me to tell the story now of taking back your pen, because this fits in
I love
right
this
here.
Story. Please tell the story. I love this.
So when we tell people that you need to find what you need to keep, I kind of alluded to it a little, but and I have to give credit to this book. I did not come up with this story. In Crucial Conversations, chapter 10, it's called Retaking Your Pen, but it applies to our industry so much and just us as human beings, where when you're born with your pen in your hand. And you are writing your own story for especially the first few years of your life. You don't give a rat's behind what anyone else is thinking, how to act and what to do. I have a 5-year-old daughter, so I can attest to this wholeheartedly, that during that time, you are just in la la land, loving life. Then you start going to school, and you go to middle school, and you go to high school, and then you care a whole lot usually about what your peers think, how they're acting, what they're wearing, what do they do, what do they listen to, what do they watch, how should I act? And then you conform to them because you want to be accepted, and you give up your pen, and then they start writing your story. And then you think, like, in that time period, like, why do I feel so yuck on the inside? It's because we're immature at that point. We don't even know that they're writing our story. We just know we want to be accepted. And so they start writing our story. But what's great, though, is usually if you're listening to this podcast, and if you're an investor or an entrepreneur, at some point you took back your pen and said, nope, I don't care what other people think. I want to write my own story. I want to go out there and do the deals or make the money or help people make an impact. And so you did. You took back your pen, you started your business, and now you're writing your story, and then you feel great. Then something else happens. One of two things happens. Either number one, you start going to events, or you listen to different, books or masterminds or whatever, and you hear other people where they're saying, I'm doing $1 million a year, or I'm doing 10 deals a month, or, David was doing 25 deals a month. That sounds awesome. And you start saying, that's what I need to do. And that's another form of giving up your pen, because now you're comparing yourself and you say, I need to do what they're doing instead of what do I need for me and my family. So you give up your pen and they start writing your story, and you're wondering why do I hate my business? Like Joey, I hate fix and flipping, and it's like, why? Because we're not really living within our own values. We're not living and writing our story. We need to take back our pen. The other flip side of that is if you're the successful one, and if you're out there and you're speaking, or you have a podcast, or you have a show, or you have this or that, or you're on stage, and then you say, okay, I'm doing the $1 million deals, or $1 million a year, or 100 deals a year, whatever it might be. And then you say, okay, this feels really good because a lot of people are giving me great feedback. Like, Jen loves me. I love this. And then that's where another form is giving your pen up to people like that and saying, I need that affirmation, instead of taking Jen's responses like that as information. Like, hey, we're actually doing a good job here. How do I do more of that and make more of an impact? It's more like, I need that. I need to go on stage. And if people don't applaud for me, then I feel horrible afterwards. Or if I don't make this, sale or whatever, I feel like, dog crap or whatever it might be. That's another form of giving up your pen, is that now you're seeking affirmation from everywhere else. Then your pen's floating around, which the best way to, I love what they tell in the book, is you can tell the location of your pen by when someone gives you feedback and how you respond to it. If you respond to it and you bite someone's head off, or you're like, why did I just bark at them? Why am that is not who I am. Usually your pen is circulating somewhere other than in your hand and writing your own story. So that's how you know if you have your pen in your hand. And how do we equate this to real estate? With Joey right there, he needed to know what he needed to keep. You need to know what you need to keep from your business. What is that need number? What do you need on a monthly basis that is not tied to anyone else other than you, your family, and what you need? So that way you take your pen back for your own business and start writing your story again. You had that pen in your hand when you first started. You said, this is why I started it. Then we lose sight of that. Once we start listening to other people and we are getting influenced by them, take back your pen, start writing your own story. Again, that's what finding your keep number is all about. And that's how Joey able to do less deals than he'd ever done in fix and flip and making more money than he'd ever made. I'm not against scaling and growth as long as it's healthy and profitable. I'm not for, like Keith Cunningham, I love his books. And he says that in his books, if you scale cancer, the tumor grows. So if you're doing $100,000 a year and you have bad habits with your finances, with your systems, with the operations, and then you try and go to $1 million a year and you're trying to scale that, you're just scaling bad habits. So you're wondering why why more income isn't solving your problems. And that's where we think that revenue solves all problems. It solves a ton if you have the right back end and the right habits and the right mindsets around money. So that's what we're really trying to convey to people. So I know that was a long answer, Jen, but that was just the whole gamut of his story.
And I just got to tell you, when I started reading your book, I was literally at an event and just looking around. It was really struggling because people in that room were making millions a year, something that I just was feeling really down on myself. And I think I told you the story, but I was actually walking in to go listen to Gary Harper speak, and I had just downloaded your book, and you mentioned Gary Harper. I'm like, oh my God, who is this guy? But that is really what spoke to me. And listeners out there, I have been doing this for 5 or 6 years. There's a lot of you that are just getting started in this, but there are struggles all along the way. And when this book came into my life, my pen, I don't know where the hell it was. It was out there, and I'm married to an accountant, by the way. And so he knows all the finances, and it's really, truly a struggle for me. So when you started, and you speak just like your book reads, which I love. And so listeners, like pause this podcast and buy it right now, because this book is so amazing and life-changing to me. So David, I can't thank you enough for it. Let's dive. Yes, go ahead.
Can I just jump in one? Because you said if you're just starting out in real estate, or in business, if you're listening to this, yes, of course, you can go buy the book. I want you to get that mindset. And I don't make a ton from it. I'm not trying to make $1 million from the book or whatever. I'm just trying to get this message out there because we can't work with every person. The other thing to it, though, is you have an advantage a little bit. If you're just starting out, and if you get this mindset, you can have good habits with your money from day one. Do you think that Jen would have wished that she would have had this at year 1 versus year 5 or 6? It's like, that's where you could have a head start. Even if you're starting later, you can have better habits. We've seen that. We've worked with some people that come on board and we're like, it might be a little too early for you, but they're like, no, we want this now when we're only doing like 2-3 deals a year, and get this system in place, because we know when we're doing 20, 30, 200 deals a year, we want this system to be able to be there at that point as well. And we're like, okay, we'll help you. That's the type of people we're looking to work with, are the people that want this and to be able to have those habits from day one. So if you're listening to this and you're like, this sounds great, but I don't have a business, do it in your personal life. Set up a different bank account, call it freedom. Just don't spend everything you make and work towards what truly is financial freedom for you. It's just that simple principle. We've heard this principle over and over and over from different books and different places, like pay yourself first, or a portion of all you have is yours to keep. Like, there's a lot of these books in our world that say this and tell you to do it, but here's a practical system to be able to do it and to be able to say that I'm not going to spend everything I make. I'm going to be like the wealthy business owner. I'm going to make sure that I take my pen back, and I know from day one, I'm going to build my business around what I need, not what someone else thinks, what I think someone else thinks I should do. That's really the big thing. Is we build business owners and entrepreneurs and real estate investors especially build their businesses around the win in the prayer plan. I hope that I am successful. I hope that I can make enough money. Oh man, that property didn't close. I hope it closes next week because I need the cash. We build our businesses around our hope and pray plan. And then we're wondering, why do we feel bad all the time? Even if we're doing deals and if we're getting the deals in and rentals in and cash flow and whatever, that's where we have to know. We have to get those habits as soon as possible. So I don't care if you're on deal 1000, it's a good time to start. Or if you're at deal 0, it's a good time to start getting the mindset around this to be able to build that foundation as early as possible.
Absolutely. So I want to dive in a little bit to
let's do it.
The bones of the book. And also, if you could throw in some taps and caps in there and how they apply to the bank accounts. But in Mike Michalowicz, I feel like I'm always going to say that name right. Mike Michalowicz's book, he talks about 5 bank accounts, which is kind of the envelope system. But for real estate investors, you add a 6th. So let's go through those 6 bank accounts that you
So here we go. A lot of people have one big bank account in their business where money goes in and out, and you're like, do I have money there today? I can spend it. I don't have money there today. I can't spend it. So that's where a lot of people make their decisions already. So that's where we come in and say, even you might not be a Dave Ramsey fan, or you might love him. Love him or hate him, he's got some good principles. And one of them is the envelope system, to give your money a name. Every dollar that comes into your either personal life or profit first system into your business life, you need to put it somewhere so that way you know what it's for. So that's where we say to set up bank accounts for putting your money in places. And the first 3 to open up, I call the golden trio. If you're just listening to this, you can't see me, but if you see a picture of me, you'd understand. I look like the typical accountant or someone who would like Harry Potter, Star Wars, like that's just who I am. I love the big epic sagas. And in those big movies, they always have 3 main heroes: Luke, Han, Leia, Harry, Ron, Hermione, like always pushing the story forward for good, making sure good wins in the end. Your business that you start is your epic saga. You need to make sure that you're going to win in the end, that you can defeat the emperor and that you can defeat evil and defeat all the forces of evil there in your business. So you need 3 main heroes pushing your story forward for good. And that's 3 bank accounts to help you keep more of the money. So those 3 bank accounts to set up first is a profit account, an owner's compensation account, and an owner's tax account. So making sure those 3 are helping you keep more. The profit, and I always get the question, what's the difference between them? Profit is something you celebrate quarterly. So you set up that account and it's the icing on the cake. It's now not just a fictitious number that a CPA tells you at the end of the year. It's an actual dollar amount that you've been saving throughout the year as icing on the cake of this is the profit, and take that out quarterly. That's your reward for having a profitable ROI on your whole business, not just one deal. Then you've got the owner's comp, which is my favorite account, because this is how to get out of your own rat race and how to make sure you're finding what you need to keep. This is where you're paying yourself on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis what you need to keep from your business. So how fast can you start filling that account up to be able to pay yourself? Because if you're in a W-2 job and transitioning into real estate, that would be the account to focus on first. The owner's comp account. How fast can I start paying myself enough to where I can consistently bring money into that account so I can quit my W-2 job if that's your end goal? So that's what that one's for, to pay yourself for the work in the business. Then the owner's tax account is to make sure that you have, especially if you don't have a ton of rentals or if you have active income, you have the tax taxes saved throughout the year and through the deals that you're doing throughout the year versus it's tax time. Oh, shoot, I've got a 6-figure tax bill. I've got to do 4 deals right now. What the heck am I going to do? So it's like saving you that financial anxiety right there. So that's where those 3 accounts all help you know what you're keeping from the bank account level. Then the other 2 fundamental accounts that Mike talks about is an income account and an OPEX account. You already have OPEX. We're not going to spend much time there. That's the bad guy. That helps you know what you're spending in the business. That's your operational expenses. Then you have the income account. That's a separate account I would set up to be able to funnel money into. Any income, any influx of money goes into that account, and it sits there till you transfer it to those other business bank accounts, the keep accounts, the golden trio, and the OPEX account to spend the money on the business and to grow the business. So those are the 5 fundamental accounts. And as you can see, the income helps you know what you're making. OPEX knows what you're spending. And then those 3 golden trio helps you know what you're keeping. So that way, at least at that level, you'll have some control and clarity over your finances, even if you don't have a finance degree or you have no inclination of wanting to learn the finances at all. It gives you something where you might already be looking at your bank accounts on a daily or weekly basis. Now you can look at them and have more clarity.
Or in a situation like me where I'm married to an accountant.
Right.
Now I'm going to have a better grasp on what is going on with our business.
Exactly. So that's what I love that, because what a lot of accountants speak a different language. We're not able to they're either talk down or over people. I'm not saying this about Jen's husband, but just typical. If you've ever had a bad experience with a bookkeeper or CPA, you're in the majority. It's not a minority, because a lot of people don't know how to speak like this. That's why some people are tentative to have me on the podcast, because they're like, oh man, another finance thing. This is going to be horrible. And I'm like, I'm not going to talk about P&Ls, balance sheets, all the boring stuff that has to be done. I'm not saying it's unimportant. It's very important. But for the entrepreneur, you're not going to dive in and become the CFO. That's not what most people's core genius is. It's making money and going out there and selling and doing deals. So that's what we focus on. That's where the 5 fundamental accounts help you know from the entrepreneur, what am I making, spending, keeping. That 6 account is what we talked about a little bit ago, that OPM account. If you have projects or rehabs or anything like that, separate out those 5 accounts for what you make, spend, and keep, separate from what I need to do to complete the rehabs or complete those projects, because that's not to help me make, spend, or keep. Those aren't to run the business, that money from other people. It's usually for a specific deal, for a specific project, to get it across the finish line. And then once it sells, then it goes into the income account. That's where the money goes into then. But up until then, it would go into OPM or rehab. We have some people call it their rehab fund. That's where it goes in there, and you're storing other people's money. So that's where the 6 fundamental accounts for real estate investing, to give you more clarity over your business and where you are. Then Jen mentioned caps and taps. So once you have the bank account set up, there are some core principles from Profit First called caps and taps. Caps, real easily, is current allocation percentages, meaning of what you're making, how much are you spending and keeping? So if you make $100,000, let's just use round numbers, and you spend $80,000, that's 80% of what you've made, and then the rest of it, $20,000, it was what you keep. So your percentages right now would be, you make 100%, then you spend 80%, and you're only keeping 20%. Then that's just giving you a snapshot of where you are. I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just information for you. This is where to a lot of people, the finances uncover truth. As an entrepreneur, you should be seeking truth all the time. Truth about your business, truth about what you're doing. How are you making that impact? Are we making enough? Are we keeping enough? Do I have enough coming in and out? That's where you should seek truth, but it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to face that truth. But we've had people like Joey where we face that truth and they're $70,000 in the hole. They need the system more at that point than anyone else, because we need to reverse it and be profitable that much faster, because we got to dig them out of a hole. We had one guy who was 270,000 upside down when we did that, like 270,000 negative. He's still with us today, still with us. We hold him accountable, and now he's in the black. But that's where a lot of people come to us, and sometimes it's hard to face those facts. Where am I right now? So those are your current percentages, and sometimes you're making 100 and spending 150. And if that's you, that's where we need this system as soon as possible. Taps are targets, target allocation percentages. Where should I be? And that's where, if you download the book, or I think we have a PDF sheet if you download the Audible, or if you buy the print version or the Kindle version, there's an actual TAPS like spreadsheet or calculator there of, depending on how much I'm making in my business, anywhere from $0 to $1 million or $10 million these are the percentages that should go in those different bank accounts from the core fundamental 5, the keep accounts, and then the spend account, the OPEX account. So that's where, okay, this is how much is coming in. What should we be working towards as a business? So if you were that example of like, hey, I'm spending 80 and keeping 20, but if you're in that, lower tier, maybe you need to be keeping more like 50 to 70% and spending 30%. That's where we also tell people you can't go from your current percentages usually right to your targets. That's probably because if you go from 80% to 30% spend, that's going to disrupt a lot in your business. It has to be, okay, how many quarters can we go from 80% to 30%? That might be a year or a year and a half, but then what you're working towards is a profitable business that you will now have good percentages until you die. Basically, like that's where you get these habits formed, and then you take a while to get through that process, and then it's like, hey, now I have the money coming in that I want to. So that's the difference between caps and TAPS. Caps is where I currently am, facing where those percentages are, and then TAPS is where should I be, and can I get there in this amount of time? And then that's different for everyone. Some people are very close to TAPS. Some people are very far away from their targets. And it's like, okay, we're not going to be able to transform this right now today, but we can't. What can we do better this quarter? How much more percentage points can we put towards your profitability this quarter than we did last quarter? That's really what we're trying to work through with people. So there's the system, there's the fundamental accounts, and then there's how to analyze where am I right now, and then where do I want to go with my business.
So for the listeners out there who maybe this is a little overwhelming, to put all this together, who should we have on our financial team?
So I'm 100% biased because I own a fractional CFO company, because most people, like I said, most people have had headaches with their bookkeepers and CPAs because they don't know how to speak entrepreneur. Everyone needs those people in their life. So there's no doubt you need those people. They can sometimes be the same persons. The CPA can do the books and whatever. I don't care about that. What I care about is you have someone on your team that can actually interpret it and tell you, this is what you're making, spending, and keeping. Are you making enough? Are you spending it in the right places to be able to make enough? And then are you keeping any of it and then holding you accountable to that system? Because if you're like, holy crud, this is a lot to set up. Number one, if you're like, you've never done a deal, get the book. The book outlines it very clearly. And if you're starting from day one, that gives you just step-by-step process there. But if you're already down the road and you have, you're doing some of these deals already, like Joey, he's only doing 5 deals a year. We've been working with him since 2019. So it depends on where you are right now. If you need someone to come and implement something like this, there's actual fractional CFOs out there, meaning part-time chief financial officers. What we call them are really financial coaches and mentors. That's really what they are. They're business financial coaches. So making sure that, hey, we're going to help you make sure, number one, you've got the right bookkeeper CPA. Like, we have to have that stuff taken care of. I don't want you wearing orange jumpsuits because you're not getting your taxes filed and all that. But then we also have to make sure, do you know how to manage the cash? Because if you do, you are going to keep so much more money from your business and attain your true financial freedom so much faster if we can get this system not only implemented, but then holding you accountable to it. And then we set up a CFO dashboard to make sure people know exactly where the numbers are going. So that's really, I am very biased, like I said, but I like for people to have a financial leader on their team that doesn't just speak accountanese. They speak business owner. They speak not just the language of numbers, but the language of the owner as well too. And to say, this is what the numbers mean. This is where your cash is going. Here's a system to manage that cash. So you do need bookkeeper/CPA, those on the team. But I would also advise, because most people as well don't know how to manage the bookkeeper and CPA, you need a financial leader to be that bridge, to gap that, to cross that gap, and to take that headache off you. And then also to be able to implement a system like this. If you're like, I need to go do deals. I don't need to be focused on the, setting up the accounts and setting up this dashboard and all that, or I don't have time to go through my books and dig out all the data. It's okay, then you need a financial leader there to be able to hold you accountable to that and to show you what the business is doing. So there you go. That's my extremely biased opinion that everyone needs a part-time CFO once they start doing deals.
Well, I'm biased because I have bought into your program. I would would I call myself a member? What am I?
Yeah. A member, a client. That's
client. That's better. Of Simple CFO Solutions. And we're only about 6 to 8 weeks in, and it has been life-changing. I have my own coach through your program who is that translator between my husband who speaks, what did you say, Accountanese?
Accountanese, yeah.
So she is fantastic, and again, truly grateful. So to wrap up this first section here, we are, because of your real estate background, we are in a transitional period with today's market.
Yes.
What is the best way to increase your bottom line in these hard times? Just quickly, just give us some nuggets.
Just quickly. Depending on what you're doing, the first thing I would say is, okay, what can we increase our bottom line right now? Was there any fat in our business? Because the market was covering a lot of sins, now it's uncovering them.
Yes.
The sins. So it's like, okay, we have a process, an expense analysis where can you sit down, print out your expenses for the last 3 months or 6 months, however far you want to go back and say, is this profitable, replaceable, or unnecessary to me? Mark it PRU. If it's profitable, it's increasing your bottom line and it's helping you save time and energy. If it's replaceable, you can find something different for it. If it's unnecessary, you're like, whoops, I forgot I'm paying for this. Or like, why am I paying for this? So that way you could increase it really quick. That's one way. We have people saving from anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000. One guy we're working with now, before we were working with him, he had heard about this concept, went back to his business because I told him about this on a podcast. He went back and cut $50,000 a month, which was nuts. He was spending 110 and was able to get it down to 60,000 a month. So I'm not guaranteeing those results, but I can probably guarantee you if you're in an active business, you could probably save at least 1,000 a year or 1,000 a month, which would give you 12,000 a year. Give yourself a $12,000 bottom line increase. But that's where from there, another thing too is, once you have clarity around your numbers, once you know what you're making, spending, and keeping, it's incredible how you can adjust those dials then. Once you have that clarity, okay, I'm not making enough. What do I need to spend and where do I need to spend it in order to increase that make number? Because all those numbers dictate my keep number. Because I have to make sure, okay, I'm keeping enough and I have to keep at least this much. But if I don't have enough to keep the business going, that's an issue. So that's where I have to make sure, okay, where are we spending the money and are we getting those returns on investment? With a lot of people, once they get through, the first, just the clarity and getting all of that set up, a lot of people will sit down with and if they want to and say, okay, let's run marketing analysis. Let's say, what are you spending? Where are you spending it? And what returns are you getting? So that way we can either turn off a channel or turn up a channel. Like, okay, we need to go into it. And I love the book Great by Choice by Jim Collins because he talks about they're firing bullets, not cannonballs. So in this market, do not, just because there's radical change on the outside does not mean you have to be radically changing on the inside. So I don't want you just to be like, okay, we have to totally change our whole business. I remember one time where the entrepreneur came back, like in the business where we were doing 25 deals a month, went to a mastermind, and he's like, we're doing it all wrong. It's like, I don't want you having those types of reactions in these types of markets. I want you to buckle down and say, what is working right now? Why are we being successful? Or why have leads stopped flowing in? Or where were they coming from before and why aren't they doing it now? Being able to zoom out of the business and then zoom in and execute. So he talks about firing bullets first. So, okay, maybe you have to open another channel. Maybe your channels that were performing aren't. You might need to open up a different marketing channel and really focus on it, but don't spend the maximum amount, spend the minimum in order to see if it's viable. So usually when you know what that is, it's usually from a few $1,000s to, it could be more than that, but that's where for this channel, what is the minimum I could spend to be able to see if it's viable? This is the time frame I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it 30 days or 60 days. If I don't see a return, then I'm going to shut it off and try another one. But you're firing bullets because you want information that says, yes, this is a good one. We're getting good responses, and then you fire a cannonball. So instead of spending $2,000, you spend $6,000 the next month, and then you get triple the leads. That's what I'm talking about, where not only focusing on cutting the expenses, but looking where you're making the money, and can you turn up those dials or down some of the dials that aren't working.
That is such great advice. I heard trim the fat and learn to pivot.
Yep, exactly.
So
that was a much simpler way of saying it.
But I mean, you are such an expert in this area, so I thank you for taking your time to do that because I know your time is valuable. And I know the listeners clearly see what a badass you are. And the second half of the podcast is what makes David Richter a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
I know you're going to ask me this. And besides Profit First in the Bible, like obviously those ones I'm huge fans of. But then another one I would say is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. Just a great business book. Helps you ask better questions as the owner. Doesn't necessarily just give you all the answers, but helps you no matter what issue you're facing. The chapters give you good questions at the end of them.
Love it. All right. The first A in badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't spend everything you make. Like making sure that you have what you're keeping from your business. That's probably the best advice that I've read or I've received, and being able to pass that on as well too.
But on the flip side, I heard you say from stage, when you do have the money, don't be afraid to spend it either.
Oh yeah, for sure. Don't be afraid to spend it. And like Joey's story at the end, now this year in 2022, he was able to give $70,000 from his giving account. So he went from going $70,000 in the hole to putting one account specifically to give to children. He's setting up a camp for children. He's spending $70,000 from that account this year to give to children. So yeah, if you build those habits small, and when you're starting to make money, that's where you can totally flip it around. So yeah, I want you to spend the money when you have it, either on other people or for yourself. The profit account, like go out and spend the money from your profit account on a quarterly basis. So that's where, yeah, don't just have the money and keep it and hoard it. Make sure that you are also smart with it and being able to spend it in the right places too.
Very well said. Thank you for that. All right.
Yeah.
The D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful?
Besides my family, I love my family and I love my wife and my daughter. I would also say I truly believe that this is a mission now. It's like gone way past of like, oh, this is fun and this is a business. No, this is a mission. Like I am on a mission to help the people get into knowing what is really going on in their lives and their businesses to get that financial freedom. And no one is preaching this on the financial side because it's usually not the sexiest side. Marketing and sales is, and I get that, but you have to have, if you're making the money, you have to keep it too. So that's what's driving me now is more, why did I travel 40 times this year to speak? And it's like, I need to get this message out there and I need to get this mission because I feel like honestly, God's given it to me to be able to help other people.
Well, I am truly grateful because I am reaping the benefits of your mission. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
Do you want my answer that I give people as a standard, or do you want the answer that's like the true answer to me?
True answer.
The true answer to me is, which is going to sound horrible, I personally don't set goals anymore. I say, I'm doing as much as I physically can now that doesn't hurt my family, that also doesn't hurt my relationship with God, and that also is driving the business as much as I can. And if I need to stop, God is going to tell me that it's not my time anymore. You need a better leader on the team to take it to the next level. Because I've always given the answer, like 40 million is where I want to get because I want to be given $1 million a year to other missions. So that's a big goal of mine. That's why I started even the business. I wasn't giving enough and I want to give more. So a portion, I have a giving account. So everything that comes in goes there first, and then we're giving from that, and I want to give $1 million annually. But like my big goal is like, there's really not an end. It's more like, how much can I level up and where does God want to cap me at if he ever does? Or does he not want me to? Do I take this to the moon and make sure that I'm helping as many people possible as I can?
Wonderful answer. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
EOS, we run off of Traction, Gino Wickman's book, and that's a big, it's a business operating system. So that's what we run off in our business. Obviously, profit first for the financial side. I do my allocations every Friday and make sure that we're doing exactly what we teach. I have a CFO on my team to make sure that we're running it well and that someone's looking at all that stuff for us as well too.
Perfect. All right. To wrap this up, David, my final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to you?
No, easy. It's exactly what I want to do I do this every single Sunday is I sit down and say, where do I put my wife and family first and the time on my calendar? It's doing like the profit first life, making sure that the first things are coming first. What do we want to do this week? And then everything else fills in. It's amazing how everything else there, the work and everything goes in there. But like making sure that I have time with my family, time to work out, time to make sure that I have my quiet time, going to church and doing the things that really matter to me. Because success is when I'm on my deathbed, and not only a lot of people say you've impacted me, but then the people that were closest to me too say, I'm glad you lived your life and that you were in it this whole time. I want my daughter to be there, and I want other people in my life to be there. That's what true success is to me.
Well, again, I am so grateful to have you in my life and your program and your coaches, and it has been fantastic. How do the listeners find you?
If you go to simplecfo.com, that's the one-stop shop. We have a podcast as well there, the Profit First REI podcast, which I'm definitely going to be inviting Jen to that one in the very near future, or whenever she wants to come on. But that's where we're just trying to give people hope. Like Joey's story, there's a lot more people that have implemented Profit First besides him that have that, no matter where you are on your journey, just trying to give people hope there. That's where you can find the book as well. It's also on Amazon. Or if you're interested in what we do, there's the schedule a call button. It's going to be low pressure. We want to make sure that we're the right fit for you at your stage of business. So we're going to have a conversation. And if we're not, we'll ping you to the right person in our life that we trust if we're not the right fit. So that's how you can schedule a call. Just simplecfo.com, the one-stop shop for everything what we do.
And go out and get the book. I'm telling you, it was huge. So thank you, David, so very much for being on the show. It has been lovely interviewing you, and I'm proud to be one of your clients as well. And I appreciate and am looking forward to the future of cleaning up all of my accounts, etc.
Right.
So thank you, David.
Yep.
I appreciate
Thank you, Jen.
And
I appreciate you.
That is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of REIN by registering on REINmastermind.com.